Revenge wasn't the plan. Not at first. I just wanted peace, a quiet piece of land by the old lake my father used to fish at. But the HOA couldn't stand seeing someone they couldn't control. So when I fenced off my shoreline, they called 911, claiming I'd stolen their community water. Within minutes, red and blue lights flashed across the waves, but here's the part they didn't see coming. I had federal codes on my side, while they screamed at the gate, waving their fake authority. I slid the documents across the hood of the patrol car, watching their faces drop as the officer said the words I'd been waiting for, "Ma'am. This isn't HOA property anymore." That silence, that moment of realization, was worth every sleepless night they'd caused. They tried to drown me in rules. I buried them in law, and if you think that's the end of it, trust me, it's not. What happened next turned their little neighborhood war into a federal investigation. Watch till the end. You won't believe who showed up when I called their bluff. When I first saw the listing, it didn't even look special. Just a few acres of land with a small forgotten lake tucked behind old pines. The water looked tired, almost gray, like it had seen too much neglect. But to me it wasn't just land. It was memory. That lake was where my father used to take me every summer. He'd park our old truck under the same sycamore tree and tell me stories about patience, how water teaches you to wait. When he passed, I promised myself that one day I'd come back here years later. I finally did this time, not as a visitor, but as the owner. I bought it fair and square. Clean title, full rights, even the shoreline easement. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I planned to build a small cabin, maybe a dock, restore the water line. Simple dreams. But dreams don't sit well with control freaks. From the moment I moved in, the HOA made it their mission to remind me that this community has standards. I wasn't even part of their development. My property wasn't under their HOA bylaws. But that didn't stop them from trying. The first letter came a week after I arrived. A neat white envelope taped to my gate. Notice of violation. Unauthorized structure on community water access area. I laughed when I read it. There was no community access, not on my deed. The old lake had been private since the 1950s. Somehow, over time, the HOA had just assumed ownership because no one had challenged them until now. I wrote back politely, respectfully. This property is privately owned and not subject to your HOA jurisdiction. Please refer to deed number 5417, County Registrar. I thought that would settle it. It didn't. 2 days later, they were parked at my gate, a group of 3 people in matching polos and clipboards, acting like they were federal agents. The leader was a woman named Sandra Mills, HOA president. Early 50s, sharp eyes, tighter smile. The kind of person who enjoys making others feel small just to feel important. She didn't even say hello. She just tapped my fence and said, "This isn't allowed." "Out!" "What isn't?" I asked. "The barrier. It blocks community access to the lake." "Oh." I looked behind her. The road ended right at my property line. There was no public easement, no shared walkway, nothing. "This is private land," I said calmly. "You're trespassing." She laughed, the kind of laugh people use when they think you don't know the rules. "Everything inside the Willow Creek boundaries falls under our HOA oversight. You'll need to remove this fence immediately." I showed her my paperwork right there on the spot. "My property line is registered to the water's edge, not your HOAS. You have no jurisdiction here." She folded her arms. "We'll see about that." And she walked off, dialing someone on her phone before she even reached her car. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules. This was about power. Over the next few weeks, it escalated. They sent me letters every other day, fines, demands, threats of legal consequences. One even claimed I was endangering the ecosystem. All lies. I ignored them. Kept restoring the shoreline, cleaning up trash they'd left over the years. But the quieter I stayed, the louder they got. One morning, I woke up to find my gate chain cut, tire tracks all the way down to the water. Someone had dumped old HOA signs into the lake, the same ones I'd asked them to remove weeks earlier. That was it. I installed cameras, replaced the locks, and called my attorney. He confirmed everything I already knew. The HOA had no authority over my property, but I didn't want to start a legal war. I just wanted peace. Then came the breaking point. It was a Sunday morning, fog sitting heavy on the lake. Birds barely awake. I was sipping coffee on my porch when I saw them again. 3 HOA board members standing outside the gate. Shouting at a police officer they'd called 911. Claimed I was blocking emergency access to community water. The officer looked uncomfortable, like he knew this was nonsense but had to check it out. I met them at the gate. Calm, polite. "Morning, officer. What seems to be the problem?" Before he could answer, Sandra cut in. "You're illegally fencing off public water. We have every right to access this lake." I looked at her, then at the officer. "Sir, would you mind checking the county property map on record?" He did. It took less than a minute for him to realize what I already knew. The property, including the water boundary, was federally registered as a non-navigable private waterway. Previously under state protection, in short, it wasn't theirs. When he looked up from the tablet, his face said it all. "Ma'am," he told Sandra, "this land doesn't fall under your HOA's jurisdiction." Her jaw tightened. "There must be a mistake." "No mistake," I said. "You've been trespassing for weeks." That's when I pulled out the folder I'd been saving for this exact moment, pages of federal waterway codes. Legal descriptions, correspondence from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I handed them to the officer. He scanned them briefly, then nodded. When he spoke again, his tone changed. "Ma'am," he said to Sandra, "you'll need to leave the property immediately. This is federal code, not HOA law." The silence that followed. It felt like the air had frozen. Sandra's face went pale. The other board members stepped back. She muttered something about filing an appeal and walked away, but I could see the fear behind her eyes. For the first time, she wasn't in control. As the police left, the officer leaned toward me. "Honestly," he said quietly, "I wish more people knew their rights like you do. They pull this kind of thing all the time." I thanked him, but inside I wasn't proud. I was tired. Tired of fighting for peace that should have come easy. That night, I sat by the water, watching the moon ripple across the lake's surface. I thought it was over, but peace doesn't come that easily when people like Sandra feel humiliated. The next morning, I found a fresh letter shoved under my gate. It read, "This isn't finished. We'll bring higher authorities if we have to." That's when I realized they were about to make their biggest mistake yet. They thought they could scare me with titles and threats. But I had something stronger, the truth and the law, and I was done being polite. I didn't sleep much after that night. Something in Sandra's letter felt different, colder, sharper. It wasn't just a threat anymore. It was a promise of war. For the next few days, the neighborhood got quiet. Too quiet. No more letters, no more board meetings, no one walking by pretending to check the property lines. But I knew it wasn't over. People like her don't disappear, they plot. Then one morning, my phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer. "You've been reported for illegal water modification. Federal Environmental Services is requesting a site inspection." I froze. That was serious. The only way someone could trigger a federal inspection like that was through a formal complaint, one filed with specific codes, dates, and claims. And I knew exactly who'd done it. The HOA. They'd twisted my lake restoration project into something illegal, claiming I was altering a protected ecosystem. They wanted to turn my own paperwork against me. It was clever and desperate. The next week was chaos. Federal inspectors showed up unannounced, clipboard in hand, taking samples, photos, measurements. They were professional but cautious, not accusing, just doing their job. When they finished, one of them said, "We'll have results in a week." But off the record, "Everything here looks perfectly compliant." I nodded, but I didn't relax. I knew the HOA wouldn't wait for results, and I was right. By that weekend, rumors started spreading online. Local community forums lit up with headlines like, "Lake owner under federal investigation and private property threatens HOA water access." They were using gossip as a weapon. Every word twisted. Every sentence designed to make me look like some selfish outsider ruining their perfect little bubble for the first time. I understood what my father meant when he said, "Some battles aren't fought with fists, they're fought with patience and proof." So I waited a week later. The results came back. No violations, no illegal activity. In fact, the report praised my efforts to restore the shoreline and clear. Decades of HOA neglect, and I didn't waste a second. I sent a copy of that report to every single homeowner in Willow Creek. No commentary. No message, just the truth in black and white. Within hours, my inbox flooded with replies. Some were angry you didn't have to go that far, but others apologized, quietly. Turns out, not everyone in that HOA supported Sandra's crusade. Some were tired of her, too, and that's when I saw my opening. I called my lawyer and asked a simple question. What happens when an HOA knowingly files false federal complaints? He didn't even hesitate. That's fraud. You can pursue damages, and federal agencies do not take kindly to being manipulated. So we started building a case. Emails, letters, timestamps, everything. Every message they sent me became part of a bigger picture, one that showed their abuse of authority. But while we gathered evidence, the HOA kept pushing back. Sandra showed up again, this time not yelling, just smirking. "You think a few papers will stop us?" she said. "You might win a battle or two, but this neighborhood belongs to us." I looked at her and said, "Not anymore." Then I handed her a copy of the federal report. "Read page 3, I said. "The one that lists who filed the false claim." Her eyes flickered down, then froze. Her name was right there. She stepped back, like the paper burned her fingers. You can't prove I don't have to," I said. "They already did." For a long moment, she didn't say a word. Just turned around and walked away. Not fast, but slow. Like someone realizing the war they started was already over. I thought that would be the end of it. But power doesn't give up quietly. A month later, I got a call from a federal investigator. He told me they'd opened an official review not of me, the board itself. Turns out this wasn't the first time they'd crossed lines. They'd misused community funds, filed fake complaints, even intimidated other residents. My case was just the one that broke it open. The investigator thanked me. Said my documentation helped them finally connect the dots. And then he said something that still echoes in my mind today. Sometimes standing your ground doesn't just protect you, it protects everyone they would have bullied next. It hit me harder than I expected. For months, I'd been focused on revenge, on proving them wrong, exposing their lies, making them regret it. But in that moment, I realized justice wasn't about payback. It was about peace. A few weeks later, the HOA board was dissolved, pending investigation. Sandra resigned before the audit even finished. The community meetings stopped. The neighborhood got quieter finally, in the right way. I rebuilt my fence. Not to keep people out, but to remind myself that boundaries matter. The lake healed too. Clearer water, new growth along the shore, fish returning. It felt alive again, just like it used to when I was a kid sitting beside my father. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned gold, I sat at the end of my dock. The water was calm, almost reflective, and I thought about everything that had happened, how a group of people tried to control something they didn't own, how power can twist into arrogance, and how silence, calm, steady silence, can be louder than any revenge. I picked up a small stone and tossed it into the lake. The ripples spread outward, wide and slow, touching every part of the water. That's what truth does. It ripples. If you ever find yourself cornered by people who think rules only apply to others, remember this piece isn't weakness. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one holding the strongest law. Don't let anyone make you believe you're powerless just because you don't shout. Stand your ground, learn your rights, and never bow to fake authority. Because when they called 911, they thought they could scare me. But all they did was give me the chance to show the truth. And in the end, the only thing louder than their lies was their silence. If this story hit you, if you've ever been bullied, silenced, or told you don't belong, watch till the very end and share it. Because someone out there needs to hear this. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers back with calm truth. I'm living proof that you don't need power to win, just patience, proof, and peace. Subscribe, stay strong, and remember your silence can be stronger than their noise.